So
Okay.
we could just go ahead and get started if you guys are comfortable with
Sure.
that.
Sure. Yeah. And by the way, I disclaimer anything I say with regards to me poking fun at people because they know that I am here just to poke a little bit of fun and good fun, um, and that if I have qualms, I take it up with them, and they know I have. So there you go.
Hey everybody, here's this agile thing. I'm Matt Beam.
I'm Mike Markey.
This is a guest. This is my first guest ever, I think, on Here's This Agile Thing. This person's name, I believe, is Marcelo Lopez.
That's what it says on the screen right there.
CST. Certified Silly Talker.
Pretty much.
Marcelo's a guest on us this week because we were in this discussion with him in a different forum, having this is the sort of the origin story. We were talking about Star Wars a little bit ago, but the origin story of this guest appearance is that we were having a discussion on another topic. We don't necessarily have to stay on that topic, but the way that you got here, Marcelo, is we were talking about how, well, we did a show last week about how Agile's dead and Agile coaches have killed it. And if I could summarize briefly, I would say it was a lack of, not on everybody's part, but maybe a bit of a lack of connecting activities to outcomes and economic justifications for quote unquote transformation that has led to some confusion, some dismay, some lack. There's some slowdowns in the whole movement towards agility, I would say. What do you guys think about that? Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, we essentially took the seed you planted during Rick's event, and we kind of riffed on it in the Agile Drum Circle. So we riffed on it for an hour, and then said, I don't know if we actually did this justice. We should take Marcelo up on his offer to show up and discuss this topic and others.
And quite frankly, you're fun to talk to. So I mean, you're welcome pretty much any time.
So in other words, what you're saying, Mike, is I did this to myself, right?
Yes.
Yes, just the same as the implication was that coaches did it to themselves.
Yes.
Well, in a way, kind of we have. You referenced it when we first started, Matt. I'm a CST. Certified Silly Talker, or otherwise known as a certified Scrum trainer, among other things. And I also have a quote unquote. I also have a day job. I'm a certified Scrum trainer by night, but I'm also by day job an agile coach, which means I get my hands dirty. I'm not just teaching this stuff. I'm actually trying to make a difference in the way of work.
You're doing it and helping others to do it.
Correct. The whole idea of this thing. I've interviewed for a lot of coaching positions over the years. I've interviewed others for a lot of similar coaching positions over the years, Scrum Masters, etc. And what I see a lot of, and actually we were just talking about this, myself and someone else who will remain nameless, that actually is also a CST and CEC and many other little letters after his name, that a lot of this stuff of professional coaching, and specifically life coaching, has crept into what has become called agile coaching. And frankly, I got to give out a shout out to somebody else who is, one of the people who when I was quote unquote coming up, you would think a guy my age, oh yeah, he's coming when he's coming up.
Several hundred years ago.
Yeah, several years ago, hit me on this, and I was like, hey, you know what? He's right. There is no such thing as an agile coach. There is someone with skills that include coaching among them. Okay, coaching among them, and that can work in an environment where more agility is being sought. Okay, and so coaching is a tool, like many others, that they can bring to bear to the type of problems, to the way of work. Okay.
Yep.
Herein lies the rub, that when you look at the world of professional coaching, by and large, yes, you're there to help people find their own possibilities, not necessarily solutions, but possibilities. Okay? But herein lies the rub. When they've hired you as a coach, one-on-one, let's say, professional coach, okay? The outcomes you're looking to get, the person who is doing the hiring retains the responsibility for actually accomplishing or acquiring the results of those responsibilities. The coach doesn't. The
Right.
coach's
Yeah.
responsibility is to help the person connect with those possibilities and help them hold themselves accountable for achieving those possibilities. Okay? If we understand that context, and then we look at the context of you're getting hired to do some work inside of an organization. An organization is not the same thing as an individual. An organization has investors, okay? It has investors into that, it has stakeholders to that, it has a fiduciary responsibility to those investors. Hang on to that word fiduciary because that's really important to hold to the rest of this. They have a fiduciary responsibility. And therefore, to bring someone like a professional coach, okay, who has not such a fiduciary responsibility into an environment where those parties inside that environment have some small sliver of said fiduciary responsibility, okay, how does that fit in? Non fiduciary responsibility, fiduciary responsibility. Which means that if you bring someone who is a coach into an environment that has a fiduciary responsibility, okay, that person has to recognize that they're not just coaching the individuals for purposes, they're coaching people for fiduciary responsibility, which means, especially if you're an employee of that company, okay, contractors slightly different but similar, but if you're an employee of that company, guess what? You share in that fiduciary responsibility, which means you just can't go to the team and say, "Well, Mike, what do you and your team feel? What do you and your team think you should do? What is it you're thinking about this today?" Okay? And take the purely coaching aspect of it into account. You can't do that. Shallow coaching, you can't do it. Many other folks have taken on to this idea that coaches have these other things in the spectrum of coaching, which are organizational design and technical leadership and business mastery and stuff like that. Here's the problem, okay? I want you to think about the last agile coach that can make sense of a profit and loss statement. Seriously.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you're saying that, if I understand you correctly, let me say part of this back to you to make sure I've absorbed it. There's a fiduciary responsibility that is invested in the employees of the organization, leaders of the organization. That responsibility is to the shareholders, right?
For better or for worse, yeah.
Yes. So that's the nature of it. So basically, they can't just do whatever they want to do. They can't hire a coach and say, "Oh, let's make the team more joyful," or "Let's try this stuff that maybe will work, maybe it won't work." They have to have a clear theory of cause and effect about what we're going to do with the coach and what effect that's going to have on the profitability or not of the organization. And so they're constrained in a way that the coaches sometimes maybe don't appreciate. Would that be a fair restatement?
I would agree with 95% of that, but yes. And the reason I would say that is because I think we all have constraints. None of us
Fair.
operate zero constraints, but other than that, you're spot on. Okay.
Fair.
Other than that, you're spot on. That the fact that we're there to help uphold shareholder value and stuff, you can have conversations, philosophical conversations about whether that's really the way your business operates. But quite frankly, given that 99% of us are operating inside of a capitalistic environment, guess
Public
what?
companies.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. It is what it is. And even if you're in a startup, guess what? The founder of that startup unless they're totally self-funded, yeah, good luck with that. They're still beholding to those angels. Those angels will come in and sprout horns if something don't smell right. Okay.
Nothing worse than a horned angel. So,
Correct.
but I'm not sure I see. So let me just bounce this off of you. So if you're properly aligned as an Agile coach, though, aren't you trying to help leaders and teams reach those same, because we're not selling Agile, right? We're not selling Scrum. Scrum is not the goal. Mm-hmm. Agile's not the goal. The goal is always to help organizations get better executing at executing towards their mission, towards serving and part of that is to make sure we make money so that we can keep doing this, right? So would proper alignment between Agile coaches and people with fiduciary responsibilities take care of some of this conflict, do you think, or am I missing something?
That's a nice utopia. Can we go work there?
Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, where I would want to talk, are we saying that Agile coaches, by virtue of the fact that they come from the outside and they don't inherently have fiduciary responsibility for the organization, does that mean that, are you seeing that as the gap between coaching right now? Or can you expand on that a little?
Cool. I'm glad you posed it as a question. I'll take Agile for 2,000, Alex. So in a way, yes. Okay. And I'll explain it this way. Okay. I know of organizations that have approached folks like myself, okay, and said, I need you to come in. I need you to train 100 people. Okay, you got a big product organization? No, we're a consulting company, and we're going to take these folks that are coming out of business school, and we're going to teach them Agile, and then we're going to farm them out. Okay.
To teach clients how to do Agile?
No, to act as coaches inside of their clients, but they're farmed out as consultants. Okay. And so they're working for this consulting agency. They're taking folks fresh out of business school. Okay. They're slapping an Agile label on them. Boo. You got to coach. They can coach it because they think they know the business and they think they know Agile. Okay. And then you've got folks who have been, working in other trades that may not have had background in technical domains or in business domains, okay, that are like, oh, I hear that this Scrum Master Agile coach thing is really valuable, okay. I never preclude anybody from trying to improve themselves in their own life and trying to get out there, but the fact is that a lot of these folks want the 3 little letters or the 2 little letters or whatever it happens to be, okay? But don't come in with the disposition that this is a journey that you need to learn stuff for. But then they go in there and trying to apply the trade, so to speak, okay? And what we end up with is a mishmash of things, okay? So it is what you said, but it's also that. It's a very, the word I'm thinking is miasma, okay? And by miasma, I mean you got a whole bunch of stuff swirling around and it's very difficult to make sense of all the stuff that's swirling in there, okay? And you can't call out, hey, is this a potato? Is this a piece of meat? Is this a carrot? Okay, because it's so, so soupy. Yeah, exactly. And some of this stuff, actually, it is difficult to just simply distill down and say it's this, Mike. It's this. This is the problem. Okay. There's so many issues.
It sounds like there's at least 2 here. I mean, you've got one problem that you've called out in which you've got people coming in an advisory role who don't have a tie to the finance of the organization, and therefore without that link, they may be just spouting off things without regard for impact to the bottom line of the organization.
I'll go you one further. I'm not saying they are. Teams that I've worked with have said as much to me.
Okay. Which would be one problem. The second problem that you mentioned, there are organizations that are slapping Agile coach titles on people who have nothing more than training. They have no experience doing the role.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so I would agree that's a huge problem. It's as bad as taking a CSM class and saying you are now the expert of all things Agile, right?
Yeah.
Which at best you're aware of what the Scrum framework does as a CSM. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this very cautiously. Okay. I have heard others say, well, the CSM, the PSM, these SMPO, the entry or the ground level certifications, you could be, hey, I'm a Scrum beginner. I'm a Scrum participant. Okay. For better or for worse, it's called Scrum Master, Product Owner, because that's what they were called, and probably not going to change. Forget it. It's probably that train has gone. We're probably not going to rename that. Okay. But when I'm training folks, I'm very transparent that, hey, this is a journey. You know just enough to be dangerous. Be careful out there with your teams. Okay. Think of the good or potentially bad that you could be doing. Okay. And keep studying. Come to me, come to Rick, come to somebody else's classes. Go study for yourself. Okay. And start to discern, okay, things that are useful and not useful in your context. But don't just think you're going to come in there with that thing and immediately start, let's go do Scrum. Let's use Kanban.
I think that's the key. Like when I've been involved in contributing to hiring decisions for Scrum Masters or coaches, like, obviously you have to ask behavioral questions. Tell me about a time when you actually helped, right? And just technical stuff like, what is a sprint backlog? What's an increment? What does that mean, right? There's a certain level of just fluency in the background. But the thing that I've always really looked for is some sense of, are you a student of this thing, right? Like, so like, what's the last book that you read, or what's the last podcast that you listened to, or what websites do you like to go to, or like, what is it? What's your opinion on #no estimates? Have you heard about that? Right? If you haven't heard about it,
okay.
Right? Not that you should have a particular outlook, but it's a journey. I think, do you think that that's sort of a fair approach to sort of guard against some of this stuff? Because what I'm hearing you say is you want somebody who's actually engaged beyond having the letters, beyond having the title or the money. It's like, do they have some appreciation? Are they on a learning path, really? Is that fair?
I would say yes, because and this was a conversation that I was having with another trainer, and we were talking about there are shallow Scrum Masters, and then there are deep Scrum Masters. Okay. And the shallow is, hey, let's just go through the 3 questions in the daily Scrum, and let's call it the daily Scrum because it's not the stand up. I'm like, guys, really, really, shallow Scrum Masters. Okay. Deep Scrum Master is, does everybody know what we need to do so that we can get closer to our goal? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Whatever it happens to be, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Okay. And if there's something in the way, let's shine a light on it so it can't hurt us anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And they use that pattern of speech, that pattern of mental, frame, okay, to help guide the team come up to their own insights. Okay. Because that in and of itself, that is actual coaching. Okay. That is actual coaching. Okay. Why? Because you're in that stance, being a mentor in a sense, slightly a teacher, maybe. You're not really in that coach's stance. Well, what do you think we should do to get to the goal today?
You should have a theory, right?
Yeah,
You should
yeah.
have a
No, well, yeah, and you know, and if you're an observant and awake person, you might have a theory about what actually will get us closer to the goal. You know, especially if you have domain expertise, you know, in that position, and you know, if it's software and you know software development, and then you might actually have an opinion. Okay, you know, and frankly, if even if you do, okay, and you as a scrum master know they're going to fall off the rails on the crazy train, and you don't say something, are you doing the right thing for the team by not saying something? Okay, a deeper scrum master will know when to let them, you know, think they have supernatural powers and slam into the brick wall versus you might want to rethink that there, Mike. Are you sure that's really the thing that will help us get closer to the goal? What do you think? What are you thinking about that? All right, and they won't come right out and tell you, but they'll make you stop and think about it before you go.
They'll make you stop and think. But the difference between the deep and the shallow is, are we challenging the teams with, now, I mean, I've let teams hit the wall before, but it's always with the intent of, we're going to talk about the outcome there, and we're going to talk about, remember back a week and a half ago when I asked you guys this question, and I was assured you had this.
Right. And it wasn't that big of a wall, right?
And,
I mean, you made sure that they weren't going to miss.
Hopefully it wasn't. But there again, there's another thing. Okay. There's another thing. A good agile coach will have that deep thinking as well, and will tell, if they really feel they have to, will tell. Here is one of the things that also differentiates what I've seen, and I've seen some really good professional coaches and some like wow, really? Okay, really? You got that nice shiny PCC after your name, huh? I'm not sure I want to let you near my team. Yeah, I might not want to do that. Okay?
Yep. But you're talking now, we've got this, you're straddling this line, because there's the consultant role and there's a coach role. And very right. So consultants are there to tell you what to do.
Well, right? Interestingly enough, a coach does have a stance where you act as a consultant, and you should be able to tell. Okay, here is the problem. That part of it has been softened, even so far as to the fact that if the person does not know that they don't know. Now, think about that for a second. They don't know that they don't know. Okay, what do you do as a coach? What do you do? No offense.
You have to give them some idea of what they don't know.
Give them some idea, which requires you to, it's a 4-letter word, starts with T, ends with L, and has L in the middle, like Kal-El. You got to tell them something.
You have to till the soil.
You got to tell them something.
It's tall.
Yeah,
it's tall tales.
Yeah. Tall tale.
While you tell.
Yeah, you got to tell them something.
There is a point in which you have to do that, and there is, I've been in situations where the rendering of those opinions was the path out the door.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Like, I didn't ask you to come here and tell me that I'm doing the wrong thing.
Correct.
I asked you to get my teams to work better. Right.
So therein lies the rub, especially as a consultant coach, is qualifying the customer. Right. Knowing how open they are to recognizing things that they don't know. And if you look at how people have been talking about this agile transformation thing, and I'm not making any of this up, so I'm just going to quote what's there. A couple of days ago, a company that all three of us know, very big in the consulting world, very, very well known. I'm just going to say it.
Heard of them.
Published an article, might have heard.
Or something that rhymes with me.
Something that rhymes with that.
We may mute that.
Yeah, they published an article. You may delete that. You may delete
Depends
that.
on what Marcelo
Yeah,
says
that's
next.
fine. That's fine. But they published an article where they literally said that these things called agile transformations generally fail, regularly fail, when the leadership fails to recognize that they need to change their behavior. And I was like, really?
How about this? Duh.
Yeah, exactly.
They paid a lot for that opinion.
People have only been saying that ever since the book called Agile Competitors and Virtual Organizations came out back in the 90s. You know, the thing that Agile got its name from? Huh?
This is why I love talking to Marcelo. He drops these references from that. Can you say that name
things
again?
that were carved in granite on
Granite. Well, they were etched into clay. What do you?
Yeah,
we were working with clay back then.
It was papyrus, man.
No, those were the kids out on the West Coast. Them and their newfangled ideas of writing on paper. Come on, we used clay and we liked it.
And we liked it. It was the style at the time.
It was the style of the time. But anyhow, it was a duh statement, and I was like, really? And these are the folks who are quote unquote dominating the industry, quoting what everybody and their grandmother has only been saying all along. It's leadership's thing because they've set the tone. Okay, but we've kind of evolved from this coach thing, so we can go back. So the answer is yeah, you could find your way out the door. Now, quite frankly, as a coach, as a consultant agile coach, again, this is going to be a controversial statement. Ready?
Hold on.
If you haven't gotten yourself fired,
Done.
You haven't been an agile coach.
If you're not willing to get fired, you're not going to be as effective.
I will go you. I will see your inside straight and raise you a flush. If you haven't,
you actually want to get. So, okay. So if we can check that box off, I managed to get fired by saying the wrong thing.
There you go.
Same.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Then,
so maybe that should be on the interview questions. Have you ever gotten fired for rendering an unpopular opinion?
Maybe.
Well, but here's an even more unpopular opinion, Marcelo. Isn't it possible to frame it if you need to really tell them something? That's a callback. If you really need to tell them something, isn't there a way to frame it, something that you know that their leadership is not going to want to hear, to frame it in a way so that it doesn't come from me? It's not my opinion. I'm not here to be the bearer of bad news. I'm here to tell you that the way that the nature of how this works is such that if you want the car to go forward, you must put gasoline in the tank. That's not my opinion. It's not me trying to control your fuel consumption. It is the nature of the beast. Isn't there a opportunity to do some teaching and say, you want these effects, here's what causes them, here's the theory behind it, here are all of the references, here's where it comes from, here's the history of it. If you want this, you need to do that. Is there a way to say, could we do better as coaches? I'm just asking this extremely controversial question. I'm trying not to get fired next time. No, you can't say.
Definitely not controversial. I would say yes. That's great framing. Okay, you wouldn't even you brought up things that you could maybe potentially call data. Empirical information. It's not. It's the data.
It's the reality that we see.
The reality. This is what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
But here's yet another controversial statement. Okay. The fact is, there is a pervasive thing that as you progress in an organization, you get more invested in your own success in that organization, or in any organization, or in your career. Okay, the more resistive, the more layers of carapace you're growing on yourself that resists empirical data that demonstrates that you don't have the bank balance that you think you have. And so invariably, okay, and again, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, someone else may have a different experience, and that's totally cool. But I've seen this time and time again, okay? executive thinks they have a balance of $100. They're feeling lucky. They want to go to the casino. They are gonna play punk down their $100 and walk away with a mint. They walk up to this ATM and then says, "Your team has a capacity of 20. That's it. That's all they got. You got 20. But you don't understand. I'm feeling lucky, Mike. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the groove today. Luck is a lady and she's with me tonight. I just need that $100. That ATM, okay, called your team's capacity. It's just going to still sit there, and the data, if you have actual data to back it up, it's just going to stare at you like an ATM. So your current balance is $20, Mike. I'm sorry, that's just not happening.
This is a common conversation that I've had with organizations where I look at their data in Jira. I look at how the teams have been performing, what their velocities have been, story points remaining, story points that you haven't even sized yet, totaling them all up and going, when do you say you need this by? And they're like, December. And you're like, I'm seeing April. This is looking like April. Like, on what are you expecting to change between now and then? And oh, we have a hardening sprint. Yeah, that ain't gonna do it.
Well, first of all, I was actually counting the minutes before the J word got brought into the conversation. It took exactly.
It's just a tool. It's just a tool,
and it wasn't me.
It can be Excel. It can be.
Don't hate me. I'm just calling it out. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I call out Jira Online a lot, but I'm actually tight with a few product managers. I was actually just speaking to one about an hour and a half ago about some stuff that they got cooking. But when I don't like something, I let them know, hey guys, you guys dropped the ball with this. Subtasks. Anyway, moving forward. You can edit that out.
Time and place, man.
No,
time and
place.
place.
Totally fine.
There's a time and place for it.
Yeah, you can edit that part out. And it wouldn't surprise me if a coach who's been working at this for a while hadn't encountered that either. And again, also, is that not a conversation that an agile coach should be able to have?
I would think you'd want to go into it,
absolutely.
talk about benchmarking, talk about the best companies that are actually doing like as good as it. What exactly does it look like? Right? Do they commit to all this work and start the work all at once, right? Or do they defer commitment, right? Do they keep their work in process down? Do they have an established way of deciding what they're going to work on in which order, and then communicate that as opposed? So there's,
but keep in mind, their opinions are varied. There are a lot of people offering data out there into the world. And for every opinion you can express or every piece of data you can provide, somebody else can provide a counterpoint to that.
Totally.
There is no objective reality when it comes to individual organizational outcomes.
Correct.
Or you're going to run the risk of cargo culting this.
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you a little nugget from when Marcelo was in college. I had a statistics professor, expat Chinese mathematician, okay, in class made us cut up. I mean, it's one of those things you just never forget. Mr. Lopez, remember, and obviously I'm giving him a bad accent because this is not his accent. Okay, 1 equals 2 for most values of 1.
What does that even mean?
Silently, and then some people started laughing their asses off. Okay, because it's true. Okay, you can spin the data all you want, but if you know enough statistics and you start futzing with the data from Jira, and you've run 50,000 Monte Carlo simulations, and it still says it's not happening the way you say it should happen or will happen, okay? The only thing you can do as a coach there is say, what is this telling you? What is it you think that it's telling you? And how does this affect what you hold as your belief right now? But if you as a coach cannot have that kind of a frank conversation, if you haven't set up an agreement with that client to be able to have that conversation, you failed as a coach.
Yeah.
You need to know, because even with ICF credentials, one of the first things to talk about, there's a coaching contract, there's a coaching agreement. Well, in an organization, you need to have a contract structured or an agreement structured with your stakeholders where you know the things you can and should not talk about. You can know that, oh my God, this is gonna just destroy them. But if you've got an agreement that says that this is not going to happen, we don't talk about this stuff, that's your contract. That's your agreement as a consultant. However, if you're a full-time employee, it's all on the table, because decisions you make as the CXO, Mr. Markey, affect my retirement. There should be nothing a frontline employee should not be able to give feedback back up to a CXO, okay, that
We're all family here.
informs and or challenges the thoughts of that CXO. That is not insubordination, okay? That is not insubordination, because as an employee of that company, your family's future is as tied to the success of that company as the CEO's. Maybe
It's probably,
more.
it's probably courage, right? Responsibility.
Maybe more.
God, gosh, I hope so.
Yeah.
The I've seen a repeating pattern. A CEO will come in with a 2-3 year contract with an intent to solve or reach some milestone, whatever that is. Improve profitability, decrease headcount, increase market share, whatever their flavor du jour is.
I didn't know that you and I worked together 4 years ago. I didn't see you. Maybe you were in the other building.
So the problem is they come in with this agenda, right? And your previous CEO may have been the one who brought Agile into the house and said, my goal is X, and we're going to be doing an Agile transformation to try and achieve that. They get out, new CEO comes in with a new agenda, and whatever that plan from before is suddenly gets devalued. It gets shut down. Right. You get called aside and say, all right, can you demonstrate that there's been some value to what you're doing, and why should we keep you guys doing this? Right. So data is all important. We ultimately have to know what we're trying to achieve through the coaching. And the fiduciary responsibility of which you spoke earlier, you would think that our sponsors, the people who we are working with, have that fiduciary responsibility and are looking for our guidance to help achieve those goals, right? But they're not generally asking us, they're not generally saying, I have to hit, the example we used last week was a 5-star rating, so you're going to help me get that 5-star rating. It's like, well, I'm going to help your organization function better, right? We're going to be moving toward a 5-star rating. I can't guarantee you're going to hit it in 3 months or 4 months or whatever. Right. That's not the kind of consultant I am.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Can I help you understand what the barriers are to not hitting the 5-star rating and setting out a pathway to it?
Right. Yeah. And therein lies another rub, because a lot of folks will come in and say, "Yeah, we're going to do an assessment of the organization." Great. Okay.
The whole thing.
I've actually had a CFO tell me they had an external company come in and do some sort of assessment on management and upper management, and then had the CFO turn around and say to me, "Okay, those folks are never coming back here again." And I go, well, why? Well, 2 reasons, Marcelo. One, because they're not telling me anything I didn't already know, and they're telling me the same thing you told me 3 years ago. Okay.
What?
Hold on.
They spent tens of thousands of dollars doing an organizational assessment to see how the organization has either improved or changed or whatever since we started this agile transformation thing. And then we could have questions about, well, I didn't ask you to do it because I told them I wasn't going to do it. I told them I'm here to get actually the results. You want to assess yourselves and in some quirky way knock yourselves out, okay? But I like results that can have some palpable thing to the customer. Let's talk about those things. Those things are things that matter to me because the position of the company as an employee, okay, matters to me because the customers like us so much that they make our stock go up. Okay, that they make my retirement become affected by it. That's outcome right there. Okay.
Well, this sort of this really takes us to another area. So you touched on it. If you had to pick some metrics that would demonstrate the effectiveness of agile coaching, do such metrics exist?
I posit to you that they really, really don't, and the ones that are out there are, I'm not going to say quirky or made up, but by and large they've been punked. And I'll give you a clean example that's not traceable back to the person who told me this. Okay, large company. Only thing I'll tell you is they're in telecommunications.
I know that one.
Yeah,
no, sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, you've probably seen it. Okay.
Yeah.
We were told to do agile maturity assessments by the lead transformation coach. Great. We did these things. Lead transformation coach says they're not good enough. We need to grade the teams on a curve.
What does that mean?
Why?
They didn't appear to be effective enough?
I cannot tell you. I cannot. Yes, but if I told you more, it could go back to the person who it literally could be. So yeah, we're talking about like 50 teams.
We actually did that. When at another client, we did grade on a curve for presentation purposes. We showed the shapes of the assessment, like on a chart, and all the values were normalized because you had some teams that were so new that they had very high opinions of themselves because they didn't know any better. And then there were teams that were extremely experienced who gave themselves low scores because they realized just how much they still needed to learn. And so we've represented everything on a curve, normalized. And what that showed was deficits across the board in the organization in certain areas, that no matter how good or bad a team was, they always seemed to do poorly in these areas. Those are organizational shortcomings that we should be trying to address.
Yeah. I would posit to you that those organizational shortcomings could have, and I'm not making a value judgment here, could have, but probably, yeah, I'll just stop there. They probably could have been surfaced without even having gone through the exercise to begin with. Okay? People generally carry around with them, okay, a sense for what is and isn't working. And if we got them talking and describing what it is, we will see what those are, because those patterns generally tend to repeat if they're systemic. Mike might experience them differently than Matt does, than Marcelo does, but they will all be facets of the same pebble in the shoe.
Okay. So let's say that there is a knowledge, but it's one of those, we know that thing and we don't talk about that thing.
Then there is where you as a coach, your job is to help get that getting talked about.
So what I'm saying is, what we used that assessment for was a way of surfacing that to people who cared. We talked to them and said, hey, what if we did an assessment and we showed you how things are going across the organization? And then they had something to come back to. But the elephant in the room is a pervasive problem that we run into in every organization. It's actually why I like coaching, is because I like elephant hunting.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
I like hunting ghosts. It's a different thing. It's the thing you think you know that's there, but wait a minute. Okay?
Right.
Because and again, I'm glad that you like hunting, but hunting the elephant is a matter of being fast enough to catch up to it once it starts running, because it will run from you. Okay, ghost.
There's also some risk it'll trample you.
And incidentally, just for those at home, we aren't talking about real elephants.
So
yeah,
it's a metaphor.
we do not support the ivory trade.
Correct.
Absolutely not. So, but here is the thing. I congratulate you for using the maturity assessment or a team assessment for good. Okay, the dirty secret behind that is not everybody's Mike. Not everybody's Matt. Okay. Again, the dirty secret is the vast majority of those things are used as stick, not carrot. Okay. Stick, not carrot. Okay. And those are the things that, again, as a agile and coaching community, we whitewash. We sweep them under the rug. Okay. We don't just call it out. In other words, if we were going to do this, if we really had a handle on what does a mature team look like, honestly, there should be or could be some way of standardizing this is a profilable, quote unquote, maturity assessment. Why? Because there's maturity assessments for human beings. How do we know that someone's behavior is blah, 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 blah? Why? Because neuroscience has studied it in controlled environments and profiled what child, adolescent, and adult behavior should look like.
And those things, by definition, are relatively sophisticated. They're relatively abstract.
Correct.
They would not center on any particular concrete example of what this is, or not. They would be like, what are the outcomes of this thing? What are the effects? Like, where do we end up? Not as do you suck your thumb for 6 months or 2 months or 0 months? It's like, well, are your teeth well aligned at 6 years, right?
Yeah.
That's probably a terrible example.
Do you suck your thumb for exactly 15 minutes or less each day?
Right.
And yet we have maturity assessments with the asinine statement of, do they keep within the time box?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Well, I mean, some stuff like that, it assumes that Scrum is the goal, for example, right? As opposed to a better retirement.
When a metric you know the phrase, when a metric becomes the goal, it ceases to be useful.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's that.
Yeah.
I mean, things like, do they have a relatively stable mean time between releases? Something like that. Okay, which is tied to concrete outcome. Okay, concrete outcome. Release is out there in the wild. That's an outcome. Right. It's not an output, it's an outcome. The release is literally in the wild. Okay? Feedback from that release, that's different conversation. Okay?
Or when something goes wrong, how long does it take you to fix it? Like, if you want to go as fast as possible.
Mean time to repair. Right.
Yeah.
Mean time to repair. Okay? So those things, those are great. Those are great. Those are tied to direct, palpable, valuable, potentially outcomes.
Yeah.
Okay, downtime, that kind of stuff. Those sorts of maturity assessments are technical domain assessments. They're not agile assessments. You could do those without any agility whatsoever, freaking ever.
And
sure, and that's why they're useful as benchmarks, because no matter what they were doing before, you know where they were.
But agile maturity assessments are this squishy, kumbaya thing. Okay? And so because they become that, they lose their usefulness. They lose their value by and large. Okay? They prone themselves to punking. Okay?
I've been in organizations where they give so many assessments or surveys to people that even it's like when we came in and said we'd like to do a maturity assessment, they're like, oh, come on, we just did like 15 surveys in the last
exactly.
And then you find out why. You're talking with the PMO and they're going, oh, we're going to do a survey of how everyone thinks that retrospective went. Like, don't do that, please.
Okay, I want to make a call out. It took 52 minutes to bring the P word out.
Well, that's not a word. That is an acronym.
Speaking of 52 minutes, so if we go back to the theme here, so our starting thesis was that Agile's dead and Agile coaches have killed it. If we want to, let's sort of start to wrap up here. Marcelo, is there anything we can do as coaches to revive it?
Well, first of all, Marcelo, do you agree that it's dead?
No, I don't. I'm a fan of Huey Lewis and the News, so I'll say Agile may be barely breathing, but the heart of Agile. Oh, sorry, call out for Alistair. It's still beaten.
Okay.
It's still beaten. It's still beaten. The fact that we're having this conversation is proof of that. So
so Agile's not dead.
Well, that was.
What about Agile coaching? Is Agile coaching at risk?
I don't think it's I don't think it's on life support
Okay.
at the moment. I think it's on life support. I've spoken to people who were affected by Capital One, people who were affected by SVB closing. I had a friend who was at another large financial here in the southeast that was literally there only 6 months. Um, right now, I think there's a realignment going on. There's a reassessment going on. Okay, and I think what's going to happen is a lot of the shallow scrum mastering, a lot of the shallow coaching, it is going to be seen for what it is, and a lot of the deeper coaches, the deeper scrum masters, those who are on this learning journey, who recognize that it's not the little letters after my doggone name. I don't have to collect 37 certifications to actually be well at my job. Okay, that will come out of this malaise, this miasma. Okay, coming out okay. All right. Am I going to say that we're all going to be driving Maseratis after this? Hell no. Come on. Come on. Okay.
What wasn't even driving one now.
That was not on the table anyway. So.
Yeah.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
It should have been this way the whole time anyway. I mean, it was just that we come out of this frothy time of zero interest rates and free money, and it feels like a realignment.
Readjustment.
It was a time. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was saying it will take some time to sort itself out.
Yeah.
Okay. There will be a time where there will not be 267 applications for a RTE or a senior scrum master.
Yeah.
There will be those times. Okay. That's not to say that there'll be two applicants and hey, you've got the most letters and everything's a shoe-in, and no, we're never going to that. Okay. We're never going to be able to go into a job and say, hey, look, I'm a scrum master and I've got the certification and hired. That's never going to happen. Okay. It's never going to happen again. Okay. But I think if folks are a little patient, are honest with themselves and say, how committed am I to this journey of learning and helping others uncover better ways?
Yep.
And then do it.
Yep.
I think we're going to come out of this okay. There's lots of naysayers that are just, and I have to respect that, they're just feeling the burnout of it. They're just feeling the burnout.
Very good.
And one subject, not that we couldn't go at another hour on this, but we didn't talk about the other buzzword in the room. What happens when you take the word agility and you put a word in front of it or a word after
it? Business?
Ugh. Okay.
Next time on Here's This Agile Thing, Marcelo Lopez comes back to discuss business agility business.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. Those are called suitcase words, Mike.
Suitcase
words. Those are called suitcase words. Yeah. Yeah. They imply more than they think they imply, or they make themselves out to be more than they really are. I posit to you that business agility is just agility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Interesting.
Which I would argue the intent of aiming elsewhere than software. Like they were trying to broaden the tent.
Okay. Okay. And the reason I kind of laugh is because I have this conversation with practically every Scrum Master class. I have them look at the Agile Manifesto and I go, take the word software.
Mm-hmm.
In the Agile Manifesto.
Change it to product or service.
Valuable outcomes.
Yeah.
Desired outcomes. Okay?
Works for nonprofits as well, is what you're saying.
Works for nonprofits as well. Matter of fact, you guys are in the you guys are in the Chi-Town area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's pronounced Chi,
there is a large nonprofit there that I coached at 7 years ago that is proof of that.
Would you like to call that organization out?
No, I'm not. I cannot bind it, but I'm pretty sure people could figure that out.
Okay, well, so we're at the time box. I assume that meeting our time box is one of our success criteria.
Matt's the only person who cares about the time box.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to keep it under an hour for the listeners. This is actually going to get published. So,
I mean, well, think about it this way. It's like for you guys, it's a time box. You guys are in the central time zone. For me, in 2 minutes, it's literally 5 o'clock somewhere here.
Okay.
So I'm
fantastic.
totally down. But seriously, guys, we can do this any old time you want. I appreciate you bringing me on. Is this really the first one of these?
No, it's
like
the first
20th.
guest. It's the first guest appearance.
This is the 21st.
We talked only to ourselves for 20 episodes.
Yeah, it was just tedious.
Really?
It's really bad.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. Are you guys going to put this on LinkedIn? Are you guys going to?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm going to blow this sucker up.
You do that.
I'm going to blow this sucker up. Man.
Thank you, Marcelo Lopez Jr. Are you a junior, by the way? I saw that somewhere.
Yes, I am. Yes,
fantastic.
I am a junior. When my parents came over from Cuba, my father was quite insistent that he change his name, and he goes, "We're Americans, doggone it, and he's my junior. If you're going to give him my name, he's my junior." So
that is fantastic. All right, well, for Here's This Agile Thing, I'm Matt Beam.
I'm Mike Markey. And
I'm Marcelo Lopez, for better or worse.
Junior CST. This has been This Agile Thing. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Make it a great weekend, everybody. Peace.